You want shirts? I got shirts.
It's only a game. Why you have to be mad?
What is up, heroes of Dominion? My name is Charlie. This is Hero Wars Central, and in today's video, we're going to discuss, debate, argue between two very strong physical damage dealing heroes. That is the heroes Keira and Karkh. So let's get into it first. How to get these heroes? Let's debate that point. It is without question considerably easier to get Keira than it is to get Karkh. And point of fact here, you can see that Keira, and this is a Facebook screenshot, full disclosure, Keira has 3 heroic mission opportunities per day that you can get her soul stones from. You can also get her soul stones from the heroic chest. So contrast that with how you get Karkh soul stones, and that is by buying 5 at a time with 65 silver trophies. Now, unless you are in a silver guild on your server, you're not going to have access, or silver or gold, I should say. You're not going to have access to Karkh on your server. You're just not. So as far as the ease of getting, Keira is going to be way better in this point. So point 1 goes to Keira for sure. I do want to mention quickly, since we are kind of covering this on Facebook as well, that the Elemental Tournament shop with the Certificate of the Elements is where you get Karkh soul stones on Facebook, and you can get a couple of these per week. You can usually get roughly 10 soul stones per week just by logging in and doing your dailies. There's no competition required. You just got to do them, and you'll get 10 soul stones a week for Karkh. Okay, so clearly Keira is favored in getting their soul stones. You'll see that doesn't really matter later on in this video, but we'll touch on that in just a second. So a quick side-by-side comparison of maxed level stats on the mobile version of the game. You can see across the board here that for the most part, Keira does have better stats. Intelligence doesn't really matter to a physical damage dealer. Agility, Karkh slightly wins out, but you can see further down the physical attack numbers. Karkh does have less at 49,801. Keira has 56,842, considerably more, and that's mostly due to the fact that Keira has an additional skin. Okay, magic attack doesn't matter. Strength doesn't matter. Health, Karkh is slightly healthier, just by like 2,000 health. Negligible, completely negligible. Armor is basically the same, but Karkh does slightly win out. Magic defense, Karkh is less than Keira, which is interesting. And armor penetration, they're roughly the same, although Keira, in the grand scheme of things, I believe has the second highest armor penetration of all heroes in the game, I believe. No, she has the most armor penetration of all heroes in the game. And I believe that Karkh is number 2, maybe King Mao. No, King Mao's way down there. Ishmael, maybe. No, he's got less. Okay, so it goes Keira, then Karkh for armor penetration. So on stats, on paper, again, Keira seems to be the better hero. Seems to be much better of a hero. So let's quickly discuss skills. So we'll talk about Karkh first, and these are from the Facebook version of the game, but don't worry, the heroes Karkh and Keira are the same on Facebook as they are on mobile. There are other heroes in the game that are different to Facebook and mobile. However, Karkh and Keira are the same. So Karkh has a gray ability that does no damage. It does, however, knock up 3 enemies, the 3 enemies with the lowest health, and whenever they fall back down, they get stunned for 2 seconds. Very interesting, very effective gray ability. His green ability, Negator of Loss, opens an interdimensional rift that can block physical attacks for 8 seconds. This will block all physical attacks up to a percentage chance, and you can see here that the percentage chance to block is 52% at max, at level 130 on Facebook, I should say. And I gain energy, or Karkh gains energy, okay, for each attack blocked. Now, what that percentage of energy comes down to, again, here on the maxed out version on Facebook, is 15.5% of damage gets converted to energy. So pretty strong ability there. Pretty strong ability. That'll come into play a little bit later. Deadly Tendrils is the key skill that Karkh has. While Karkh is alive, he strikes every enemy who is thrown into the air. If the enemy level is equal to less or 30, Karkh deals double damage. So no matter what, this ability will damage enemies that get knocked into the air. However, there is a good chance, that when the enemy is knocked into the air from one of Karkh's abilities or somebody else's ability, this attack will do double damage. And it's this ability that is his bread and butter. This is what causes so much damage, so much just catastrophe on the enemy team. When paired with Nexus of Horror, his gray ability, it's a very strong area of effect ability. Okay, and then finally we have Survival Factor. Attacks against enemies thrown into the air heal the hero for a fraction of the damage dealt. So Karkh does gain a little bit of self-healing whenever an enemy gets thrown into the air and damage gets dealt. So you can see here that, again, this is max level on Facebook. 27.5% of damage dealt gets recovered as health. So let's contrast that a little bit with Keira's abilities. So Keira, like Karkh, has an area of effect gray ability, and this ability is called Blade Whirlwind. Keira launches a whirlwind of blades. The blades will hit the furthest enemy and then bounce back, dealing damage to all enemies and silencing them for 4 seconds. So this is kind of like Karkh's gray and blue ability all into one, except it hits the entire enemy team. It will silence for 4 seconds instead of stun for 2 seconds. Very similar, but very noticeable. 2 seconds more, double the silence. Okay, very strong. Next, we have the green ability, Enraged Soul. Keira's speed increases for 5 seconds. So this is just a simple plus damage increase for Keira. Very strong ability. We have Dancing Blades. This is a passive skill. Okay, so her basic attacks, that means the attack that she does whenever she's not using an ability, will ricochet between enemies, dealing damage based on a percentage on each hit, and the excuse me, the damage here at level 29, I should say, is 25%. The chance to ricochet is based on the enemy's level, but usually this will hit every enemy hero once you're at max. Okay, and then finally, Piercing Pain. This is another passive skill. If the enemy is lower than Keira's armor penetration, her basic attack deals extra damage. So not only does her basic attack deal extra damage, and this is pure damage, by the way, her high armor penetration will almost guarantee that the area of effect damage that she does will be dealing this additional pure damage to her opponents. So what does that mean? Comparing these two heroes, what does that mean for you? Well, they're both extremely strong physical attacking heroes. Obviously, they're both part of, two of the top 5-ish meta teams in the game. And on screen here, you can see I've grabbed 5 teams each of what I feel to be some of the most popular Karkh and Keira variants of these teams. And you can kind of see just by browsing down the list that there's a lot of key players that happen in both the Karkh team and in the Keira team. So, for example, on the Karkh team, you have a lot of heroes that will do knock-ups. So you have Faceless that knocks the enemy up in the air. You have Kai that knocks the enemy up in the air. You also have, Astaroth as a tank to help prevent damage on, your squishy Faceless in the back or, whatever. You also see a lot of Nebula. Nebula, based on Karkh's positioning, Nebula is a great support hero. Now, on Keira's side, you can see a lot of the same kind of things. You see Nebula boosting the damage. You see a lot of Sebastian and Jet, which will boost... Jet gives Keira critical attack, and Sebastian boosts critical attack damage. And you can kind of see that there's a lot of similarities in the way you build these teams. A lot of similarities, yet a lot of differences. So, earlier, whenever I mentioned about how to get Keira and Karkh Soulstones, it's this screen right here that kind of tells the tale of ultimately which team is easier to build. Obviously, Keira is easier to get, but which team is easier to build? Well, take a look at the top team on the left, which is my favorite team. That is Astaroth, Karkh, Nebula, Faceless, Martha. Not that easy to get. Astaroth, of course, is a campaign hero. We already talked about how to get Karkh Soulstones. Nebula is actually the same place that you get Karkh Soulstones, so kind of crappy there. Faceless you can get really, really easy, and Martha is difficult. Martha's difficult. Now, more difficult than Martha and Nebula and Karkh is Nebula with Sebastian and Jet, right? So Sebastian and Jet are two of the hardest heroes to get in the game right now. Jet you can only get from the Soul Shop, from the vendor, using Soul Coins, and Sebastian you can only currently get from special events. So if you don't currently have Sebastian, you're not going to get Sebastian for a minute until they add him to the daily chest, if they ever do. Now, looking down the list, there are easier to build teams for each of these heroes. In particular, on the left, you can take a look at the middle team there, Astaroth, Karkh, Kai, Jorgen, Faceless, you've got Kai, Jorgen Faceless, which are vendor heroes. Astaroth is a campaign hero, and Karkh being the most difficult one to get. And on the right, you have probably the easiest team to build would be, I don't know, maybe the second team, maybe the bottom team. Anvari is not as easy to get as he could be, but getting, Orion and Nebula, I don't know. So the point that I'm trying to make is overall, Keira teams are a little bit more difficult to build as far as Soulstone availability than Karkh teams are. I feel like both teams are very strong. They both have their their pros and their cons, but I think that the Karkh team needs a little bit more team synergy than Keira does. I think Keira is a little bit more general. I think Keira can fit into a little bit more teams than Karkh can. That's not to say Karkh can't be effective. Take a look at the bottom two teams on the Karkh side. You have Karkh, Nebula, Sebastian, Jet. Now that's a weaker version of the Blender team, but that team still does work. Take a look at the second from the bottom there. Cleaver, Karkh, Nebula, Peppy, Martha. That's an interesting team that I've been using a little bit to put my Faceless in my second team, and it's shown to be an effective team. So while there are many opportunities for Karkh, I feel like there are fewer opportunities for good, strong Karkh teams than there are for good, strong Keira teams. Now, does that mean that Keira is a better hero? I don't know, but I do think that Keira's best teams are more difficult, more expensive to build than Karkh's best teams. However, Keira does fit into more teams, so you have more variety of leveling up until you get that Jet leveled up, until you get that Sebastian leveled up. Or maybe you need Dorian, maybe you need Fox. All right. So final words here. Obviously, I prefer Karkh over Keira because I'm very, very vocal about my quote unquote Bob team and how much I love it. I have access to every hero, and I've been playing the game for over a year now. So small debates for me don't really mean as much. However, when it really comes down to it, Keira has 4 skills that boost her attack, whereas Karkh has 2 skills and 2 defensive skills. Okay, so I feel like Keira and Karkh are very, very similar. They're both in the same position, even though Keira is a marksman and Karkh is a warrior. I feel like they're interchangeable. I feel like for the most part, you can drop Karkh into a lot of Keira teams and Keira into a lot of Karkh teams, and you won't miss a beat. However, Keira is obviously more offensive, and Karkh is more defensive. I liken it to saying maybe, Keira is a punch, whereas Karkh is more of a counterpunch. Karkh is much slower to charge and has self-healing, a little bit more defensive. Keira is much faster to charge, no self-healing at all, pure offensive. But they both get completely destroyed by Fox. So keep that in mind. So with that being said, guys, tell me what you guys think. Who is the better physical damage dealer? My subjective opinion is that Karkh is better, but that's just the style of player that I am. More control, more methodical. If I was a fast attack, speed is all that matters kind of player, then I would be Keira 100%. I have Keira. I use Keira a little bit on my mobile account, but I've kind of dropped her out for more heroes that I like better. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section down below. There are Karkh variants that easily beats all of the Keira variants, and there are Keira variants that beats all of the Karkh variants. So it's there is not a clear winner here. On paper, there is a clear winner, and that is Keira, for sure. But in practice, whenever you take a broader look at everyone, I think it's more subjective to the player than it is objective, more factual based. So let me know what you guys think. Like I said, I love you guys, and good luck in Dominion.